Hi, welcome to Pure Yoga core class. So today we're going to work quite a lot on the oblique muscles, which are the sides of the waist, and that will help keep our pelvis a lot more stable. So it gives us a better stability through that corset part of the body. But we will also be doing a little bit on the glutes and the hamstrings when we go into our low lunges and high lunges. So we're going to be doing quite a lot of planks today. So just a little pointer when we do planks. You don't have to go in full plank if that's not good for you. And it is going to be side planks, which can be a little bit more challenging. So if I tell you to go into a plank, you can always come either into a full plank here or drop the knees. If it's a side plank, drop whichever knee I ask you to drop and turn the foot out off the mat and then roll onto your side so that underneath knee will be dropped. Now, one of them is going to be hip dips. So it's a little harder when you're with the knee dropped. So what you'll need to do is maybe move that hand a little further forward. And those hip drops are going to come in this style. Whereas if we're doing the full plank, there will be more into this version, dropping the bum more towards the floor. So that will be your variation when it comes to the hip drops. So just keep that in mind when we get there. All the other side planks can be done quite easily because the other side planks are done with things like bringing elbow to elbow, lifting the top leg and lowering knee to elbow. So all them can be done quite easily with a drop knee. It's just that hip drop one that might be a bit of a problem. Okay, so we are just going to start in our cat-cow position, and we're just going to articulate the spine a little bit, just to get that spine a little bit more moving. If you're starting the practice in the morning, that spine might feel a little bit locked out in places, and the connective tissue might be a little bit sticky from being in bed. If you're doing it in the evening, maybe your body feels okay, but we'll do them anyway just so we can warm up that spine. So bring the heel of the hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips, tops of the feet flat on the floor. Take a breath in, lift up the head, lift up the bum, let the belly drop down towards the floor. Take a breath out, fold everything back in, the chin into the chest and that tailbone tucks, centre of the spine lifts. Flow through those two places a couple of times just to notice how each part of the spine's feeling. So the cervical part of the spine around the neck, see how that feels. And then the thoracic part of the spine, which is in between the ribs. So from the cervical spine of the neck section's the thoracic spine. And then we bring ourselves down into the lumbar spine, which is that lower part of the back. Quite often gets a little bit pinchy, particularly if you're not very strong in the core, because quite often the hips go into an anterior tilt where the belly drops forward a little bit because you haven't got that core center strength. And then we come down to the sacrum, the tailbone, that lower part of the spine that's fused together, so there's not so much movement there. And as you're moving in and out of these flexions and extensions, just noticing each part. Just another couple. Using the breath as well. Breath in, lifts up the head, lifts up the bum, drops the belly. And the breath out, we fold everything back in, chin to chest, tailbone tucks. Next time you come back through that center space, tabletop position, reach your right hand forward, bicep towards the ear. Reach your left toes back. Now I really want you to think about drawing the belly back towards the spine and try and push the belly away from the mat and try and feel like you're tethering those ribs and hips towards each other. And then keeping that tether of the ribs and hips, lift up that left leg. So hopefully you're not starting to arch in that lower back. We're keeping a nice long line. Ribs and hips drawn towards each other. We use the strength of the glute and the hamstring to lift that back leg. All the time pushing into that left hand for support, the top of the right foot for support. And we're just holding it in this position for a couple of breaths. Try not to let the belly sag towards the floor. Keep it squeezed back. Try not to feel any pinch in that lower back. If you're pinching in the lower back, maybe that belly's dropped and you've lost that engagement through the center. Maybe lift that left heel a little higher without that back arching. Maybe lift the right arm a little higher without, again, dumping into that lower spine. One more breath here. Then release that right hand down, the left knee down, and just move that spine again, cat-cow. Breath in, lifts up the head, lifts up the bum, and drops the belly. So release the tension in that belly area. Breath out, fold everything back in, chin to chest, tailbone tucks, center of the spine lifts. Bring it back to that neutral place, tabletop position. And again, support that center, draw the belly back. Keep it squeezing back towards the spine. Reach out with the left hand. Take the right toes to the back of the mat. Feel about squeezing that bum as you lift that right leg away from the floor. Keep that belly from sagging towards the floor. The hips and ribs are feeling like they're tethered towards each other. So we've got a good straight line through the back. Keep pushing into that right hand to keep supported, top of the left foot. Keep lifting that right heel, maybe a little higher if you can, but don't take the compensation through the back. Use the glute, use the hamstring to lift that leg. Use the extension of the shoulder to lift it up a little towards the ear. But again, the more you lift that shoulder, sometimes that makes you dump in that lower spine. So squeeze that belly back, ribs and hips nice and tight. So you'll get fed up of hearing me saying keeping the ribs and hips tethered. That's a good cue to keep that belly nice and supported. One more breath in this position. Then release that left hand back down, the right knee back down, and just take a little movement either with the hips from side to side, or maybe take a cat-cow again if that's what you feel you need to do. The movement of the hips from side to side just releases off any tension you've held around that corset area. From this position, we're going to do cat-cow again, but we're going to take it slightly different. So your breath in, we lift up the head, we lift up the bum, we drop the belly. Your breath out, you tuck the toes under, you bring the chin back into the chest, you push it into the toes and slightly lift the knees. So we're taking it into cow with knees lifted. Your next breath in, you lower the knees, you untuck the toes, you lift the head and arch the back. Your breath out, you start to tuck the toes under, the head comes back down, chin to chest, and you lift the knees into that cat position, arching through the back. And then take those knees back down on the inhale and tuck the toes, lift up the head, drop the belly. And take it back into cat position, tucking the toes under, lifting the knees and arching that spine. And again, take it into an inhale, untuck the toes, lift the head. Take it into your exhale, the toes tuck under, lift the knees, round through that back. 2 more of these, breath in, lift up the head. Lift up the tailbone and drop the belly. Breath out, tuck the toes, lift the knees, round through the back, into cat. 1 more, drop the knees, untuck the toes, lift up the head, lift up the tailbone. And your breath out, tuck the toes under, lift the knees, round the back of the spine. Bringing it back down now into a tabletop position, just for a breath. And then just let those hips rock a little from side to side. So making your way now onto your backs, cross the feet under or swing the legs around. Bring the bums down, then into the center of the mat. Then bring the shoulders down to the floor. So keeping your feet in like a bridge position. So the heels of the feet come towards the bum, almost like you can touch those heels with the fingertips as you bring the hands down by the sides of the body. So lifting, we're going to lift the hips so the hands stay on the floor for a moment. Push into those feet, slowly curl up through those spines, 1 vertebra at a time. Try not to let those knees come any further than hip width apart. And start to bring that chest towards the chin, but create a little space through the back of the neck. and hold it in bridge position for a couple of breaths. Squeeze that bum, squeeze that upper part of the hamstring to push those hips a little higher. Another breath, and then slowly release that bum back down towards the floor, keeping that core engagement, keeping those glutes switched on until those bums come back down to the mat. So again, we push into those feet, we start to switch on those glutes, start to raise those hips back up towards the ceiling. Knees don't go any further than hip width apart. And then as you hold it up this time, I want you to reach your right fingertips towards your right foot. So we get a little lateral flexion in the waist. Bring those shoulders back into center and then reach with the left fingertips towards that left foot. Back to the center all the time, keeping those hips nice and lifted. And again to the right, so lateral flexion through that waist. Back to the center. Try let the hips stay in the middle. And then reach with that left hand towards that left heel. Back to the center. And again on the other side. Reach for those right toes. Back to the center. One more time on the left. Reach for those left toes. And bring it back to the center. And then slowly let those hips come back down towards the floor. Give the knees a little hug gently into the body, but not tight. Just maybe make a little circle with those knees on the ceiling in one direction, and then take those circles the opposite way. So the next thing we're going to do is bicycle crunches. So keeping the knees stacking over the hips, take the hands behind the back of the head. Push that belly back in towards the mat. So we're pushing that lower spine in. And I want you to feel that engagement through the whole of this practice. So feel again like you're tethering the ribs and hips towards each other. Then just lift the shoulders away from the mat and the elbows stay nice and wide. Take a breath in. Take a breath out, straighten the right leg, bring your right elbow to the left knee. Breathe in, come back to the center. Breathe out, straighten the left leg, left elbow to right knee. Back to the center. Again on the other side, all the time pushing that lower back into that mat. Back to the center and take opposite elbow, left to right knee, straightening the left leg. Back to the center. Keep pushing that lower spine into the floor, tethering those ribs and hips towards each other. Keep alternating one side to the other. Take the movement nice and slow. The slower you move in and out of this place, the more you work those muscles. If you move fast, the more you will go with momentum, and it will just be the speed of throwing the limbs around that will get the movement. Whereas taking it slow, we know we have to use that muscle engagement. Maybe you're starting to feel a little tight now in that belly, but keep that belly drawn back. Keep pushing that lower spine in towards the mat. Opposite elbow to opposite knee. Straightening the other leg out. Keep that movement coming. Nice and slow from one side to the other. Stretching out with that right leg on this side. Bring it back to the center, stretching out with the left leg on this side. Really squeezing those ribs and hips together. Making sure that lower back isn't going into an arch. Another few more of these in a nice slow fashion. You'll start to feel that belly maybe starting to burn now. I know I certainly am. Another one on each side. And then release the shoulders down and give those knees a little hug in towards the body. Just let go of anything you're holding in that corset strength. Then just make a couple of circles with the knees on the ceiling in one direction. Take them into the other. Get into that lower back, giving it a little massage, a little TLC. And then start to rock up and down that spine, bringing yourself up once, back down. Up twice, back down. Up the third time, and then just find that balancing point on the lower part of the spine and just above those sit bones. Lift up your right leg up to knee height. Lift up your left leg and feel that total balance in this boat position. We're just going to hold it here for a couple of breaths. Choice to release the hands from behind the knees if you wish. Keep lifting up through that chest. Keep lifting up with those knees. Feel that hip flexor strength connecting now. That psoas muscle, that muscle that makes us sit up and helps us lay back. One of the main muscles in those hip flexors. One more breath here in this position. And then we're going to make a way back to down dog. So either swing the legs around the side or tuck the feet under, bring the hands forward. Step back to a plank first. Hold it in plank. So I'd like you to get good alignment in plank here. So the elbows and shoulders should be stacking over the heel of the hands, or a little further back if you have wrist problems, or bring it further forward. That will cause a bit of an impingement in those wrists. So either stacked on top or slightly back. Feet hip width apart, hands shoulder width apart, and without moving those hands and feet, start to lift those hips back to a down dog. Try not to adjust the feet, maybe just paddling those feet a little to let those hamstrings just relax out a little more. So from this position, bring the heels to stillness, try and encourage them as close towards the mat as they can go. Then breathe in, come up onto those toes. Breathe out, drop the heels to the right, and then drop the right hip down towards the mat. Then lift those hips back up, come back up onto the toes, and then let those heels go back towards the mat. Your next breath in, come back up onto the toes. And your breath out, drop the heels, drop the left hip now towards the mat. Then lift those hips back up to the center and draw the heels down towards the floor. You may need to have a little fidget with the feet if they're slipping. Your next breath in, come up onto the toes. Drop the heels to the right. Drop the right hip down slowly towards the mat, keeping it nice and controlled. And then lift those hips again, back up, come back to the center, onto the toes. Then as you breathe out, just let those heels come back down towards the floor. And again, come up onto those toes. Drop the heels to the left. Drop the left hip down towards the floor. Keep it nice and controlled in the center. Then lift those hips, come back up onto the toes and draw those heels back. One more time, both sides. Come up onto the toes. Drop the heels to the right. Drop the right hip down towards the mat. Then use that oblique strength to lift those hips again, back up towards the ceiling. Drop the heels back towards the mat. One more time on the left, come up onto those toes. Slowly drop those heels to the left. Bring those bums down towards the floor, the left hip towards the mat. Then push into those hands, lift the hips, come back up onto the toes. And then squeeze those heels back. So I'd like you to take one step forward so the hands and feet come a little bit closer. Bring your weight into your left hand. Bring your right hand to take hold of the knee on the left or the shin, or taking the ankle. Holding on to wherever you can reach, then turn and twist the body to gaze under that left armpit. All the time pushing strong into that left hand, pushing nice and strong into those feet. And get that rotation through the waist. That external help with that hand holding on to that left leg will help you get a little more twist underneath to look under that left armpit. Hold it here just for one more breath. Squeeze a little more out of that waist. Then bring that right hand back to meet the left. Then taking your left hand towards that right leg, grab a hold of wherever it reaches, and then turn and twist the body to gaze under that right armpit. Keep pushing strong into that right hand, squeezing through the waist as we take that twist. Hips staying nice and neutral in the centre of the mat, and the rotation coming from the centre of the body. And the shoulders just twist along as we twist that waist. And then release that left hand back to meet the right. Slowly bring the knees to a hover off the mat. Push into those hands and feet. Tether the ribs and hips towards each other. Hold it here for a couple of breaths. And then again, push into those hands, push into those feet. Lift up those hips, squeeze those heels back. Taking it one more time on both sides. So put the weight into the left hand. Bring the right hand to wherever it reaches on that left leg. Use that right hand to help make the twist. Goes underneath that left armpit. Rotation through the waist. Strength through those shoulders. Strength through those corset and core muscles. Hold it for one more breath there. And then release that right hand back to meet the left. Put the weight into the right hand. Take your left hand to the right leg. Twist through the waist. Gaze under that right armpit. Strong into that right hand. Push strong into both feet. Try and twist that waist a little more. Use those obliques. Use those abdominals at the front of the belly to help make that twist. Then release that left hand back to meet the right. Just come down onto the knees and just give those wrists a little shake. So quite often this holding planks and holding down dogs can give those hands a little bit of an issue. So next one, we're going to come back into down dog and we're going to move our leg up and down, bringing our knee to opposite elbows into the nose. So find your way back to down dog. So if we go through plank first, make sure the shoulders are over the heel of the hands, feet hip width apart, then start to lift those hips and squeeze those heels back. Try not to move those feet any further closer towards the hands, else that will get you a little too close if we come back through plank again and vinyasa. So squeeze the heels down. Your next breath in, raise up with the right leg and keep that right leg nice and straight. Try not to let that right hip lift. Right hip's trying to stay in line with the left, and we use the glutes and the hamstrings to lift that right leg as high as it can be. Then bring that right knee towards the nose, but don't let the hips drop. Squeeze that hip flexor and try and bring that nose as close to the knee as you can bring it. Hold it there for a breath. Then raise again that right leg up towards the ceiling. Hips stay nice and neutral. Then bring that knee towards the right elbow, but this time bring the shoulders over the heel of the hands and squeeze it in. Hold it there. Nice and tight towards that right elbow. And then come back up to your downward facing dog one leg, lifting the right leg up towards the ceiling. Try not to let that right hip lift higher than the left. Then bring that right knee across the body and bring it towards the left elbow, bringing the shoulders over the heel of the hands. Hold it there for a couple of breaths. Then lift again that right leg up towards the ceiling. Hips stay neutral, push that right heel up and away. Bring the right leg down to meet the left and just pedal those feet here. taking a couple of moments just to loosen out those hamstrings. Bring the heels then back towards the mat. And then doing the same with the left leg. So raise that left leg up to the ceiling. Try not to let that lower back arch. Tether those ribs and hips towards each other. Try and encourage that right heel down towards the mat. Then without lowering the hips, bring that left knee towards the nose and squeeze. Hold it as tight as you can into that body. And then raise that left leg again back up towards the ceiling. Keep that right heel squeezing down to the mat, both hips nice and level. And then this time bring that left knee towards the left elbow and squeeze. Hold it there, shoulders come over the heel of the hands. Hip flexors working because we're squeezing that left knee towards that left elbow. Then raise that leg back up towards the ceiling again and squeeze that right heel down, hips stay neutral. Then bring that left knee to across the body towards that right elbow. Shoulders come over the heel of the hands. Squeeze it in as much as you can. Really work those hip flexor strengths. One more breath. And then lift that left leg back up towards the ceiling, encourage the right heel down. Then bring that left foot down to meet the right, take a paddle through the feet. Come down onto the knees. Separate the knees, bring the big toes together. Sit bones to the heels. And then just bring those arms behind you, bring the forehead to the mat. And just take a couple of moments here, either in child's pose with the arms back, just to relax those shoulders. Or maybe take this moment to take on some water if you wish. So the next couple of things we're doing is we're going to be doing a lunge where we'll be using the oblique muscles to rotate, and then we'll be taking it into a version of side plank. So just take another couple of breaths in your restorative place, child's pose, and then in another breath or two we'll find our way back to downward facing dog, lifting the hips, squeezing the heels back. So making sure you've got that good position of down dog first. Your next breath in, we raise up that right leg. Keep the hips nice and neutral. Then bring that right knee towards the nose and squeeze it in, keeping the hips high. Then raise that right leg again back up towards the ceiling. Hips stay neutral, left heel towards the mat. Bring that right knee towards the right elbow and start to bring the shoulders over the heel of the hands and squeeze it in. Next breath in, raise that right leg again. Hips stay neutral, take it nice and slow, no momentum. Then this time bring that right knee across the body towards that left elbow. Shoulders come over the heel of the hands. Raise that leg back up towards the ceiling. Left heel down towards the mat. Hips stay neutral. Then this time bring the knee to the chest. Take a gaze in between the hands as you step your right foot through. So choice can be to drop the back knee here if you wish, or stay up on that back knee if you want to make these lunges a little stronger. So drop the knee if you wish, or come with me, lifting the knee. Bring the shoulders over the hips. Think about tucking the tailbone down, tethering the ribs, belly drawn back. Bring the arms up to shoulder height. Bring your right arm under your left. Either find the back of the palms or the palms. Sink into that right knee a little further. So try and encourage that left leg back to be straight. That left heel to the back of the mat. Raise the elbows so they come up to shoulder height. And then turn from the waist to turn towards that right side of the room. Use that oblique strength to make the twist. Come back to the center and then turn and twist to the left side of the room. Shoulders come along, the twist comes from the waist. Pelvis stays neutral to the front of the mat. Come back to the center and again turn and twist to the right, squeeze through that core center. Left heel pushing back all the time. You may feel a stretch a little more down that left hip flexor. Come back to the center, and one more time to the left. Work those obliques, twist that waist. Pelvis stays forward to the front edge of the mat. Come back to the center, release the hands down, step back to a plank, and then take a drop of the right knee if you're going into a drop knee plank, and turn that foot off. Then bring your weight onto your right side. Your left hand comes onto your hip. Move maybe that right hand a little further forward if the knee's dropped, and then drop that right hip down towards the mat. Then lift the left hip back up and back. If you're going in the full variation, we drop that right hip down towards the floor, then lift that left hip back up to the ceiling. Either stacking both feet or just have that left foot slightly in front of the right if that feels a little more stable and a little more balanced. Keep moving in and out of hip dips. Lifting the hip on the inhale, dropping the hip on the exhale. Just 2 more here. Really working that strength of the body, that strength of that waist. 1 more. And then make your way back to a plank. Lift the hips and squeeze those heels back. Have a little nod and shake of the head in case you're building any tension up through that neck. Then we'll take exactly the same thing on that left side. So lift that left leg, use the glute and the hamstrings to lift. Try not to let that left hip lift higher than the right, and squeeze the right heel back to the mat. Then keeping the hips high, bring that knee to the chest. Raise that leg again without that left hip hiking. And this time bring that left knee towards that left elbow. Shoulders come over the heel of the hands. Raise that leg. Bring that knee to the chest. And across the body to the right elbow. And lift that leg back up to the ceiling. Hips stay neutral, don't arch that lower back, tether those ribs. Then bring that left foot in between those hands. Choice to drop the back knee if you wish. If you're coming with me, bring the shoulders over the hips, tether the ribs and hips towards each other, tuck the tailbone down. Sink into that left knee. Bring the arms to shoulder height. Left elbow this time under the right. Back of the hands or the palms. Raise those elbows up to shoulder height. Push that right heel back, engage the glute on the right side. Keep low in the hips. Try not to go into a flare of the ribs. Start to turn towards your left side. Use that oblique strength to twist. Hips stay forward, twist comes from the waist. Try not to arch that lower back. Come back through center. Then turn and twist to your right side. Keep low in those hips, keep them facing forward, twist from the waist, back to center, and over again to your left side. Come back to center. 1 more time to your right, twist to the right, back to center, and release the hands down. Step back to a plank, hold it in plank for a couple of breaths. And then taking this time the weight onto your left side, so maybe you're dropping that left knee, turning the foot off, and bringing the shoulders and hips to stack. If you're in the drop knee position, we're doing hip drops, then move that left hand slightly forward and take the out breath to drop that left hip towards the mat, and then lift that right hip back up to the ceiling. If you're full expression, both legs straight, either feet stacked or the right foot in front of the left, and drop that left hip down towards the floor, and then raise those hips back up to the ceiling. And again, drop that left hip down to the floor. Raise that right hip back up to the ceiling. Drop that left hip. and raise. 2 more times on this side and raise. 1 more time and raise. And then bring yourself back to full plank. Drop the knees. Have a little shake of those wrists. So we're going to do one more high lunge with a variation, and it will be a side angle stretch with the choice to maybe lengthen the arms. So the longer the levers, the more you'll be working the core strength, but we'll give you choices when we get there. So making your way back to down dog. Bring the hands in front, stack up with your plank first, lift the hips, try not to move those feet too much or shuffle them forward. And we'll take it on your right side first. So breath in, raise the right leg, keep the hips neutral, try not to arch in that lower back, left heel towards the floor. Bring the knee towards the nose but keep the hips high. Then raise that leg again back up towards the ceiling. Hips stay neutral. Bring that right knee to the right elbow, shoulders over the heel of the hands and squeeze. Tether the ribs and hips. Lift that right leg again back up to the ceiling. Try not to flare the ribs as you lift that leg. Then bring that right knee to the left elbow and squeeze. Shoulders over the heel of the hands. Then raise that right leg back up towards the ceiling. Bring that knee towards the chest. Gaze in between the hands as you step that right foot through. Drop the back heel, bring the shoulders over those hips. Bend into your right knee. Bring your right forearm onto the right thigh first. Reach up with the left hand, then reach it over towards the front of the mat. So your choice can be to either stay here or just release that arm to be heavy so you know you're not putting the weight into that right arm. Or if you want to make it a little stronger, lengthen the lever of the right hand and hold it here for a couple of breaths, pushing into the whole of the back foot, the whole of the front foot. Turn towards that left side, reaching up with both hands, using this core strength in the center to hold the body at that 45-degree angle, and drop into that right knee, maybe a little more. Keep the chest turned, arms lengthened or arm down by the side or elbow on the knee, whatever works for you. The longer the limbs are, the harder it is to hold. One more breath here. And then turn the body, release the hands, step back to a plank. Hold it in plank for a breath. Then turning onto our right side. If you're dropping the bottom knee, the right knee drops. We turn and twist the body. This time bring the left hand behind the back of the head. Breathe in, breathe out, bring the left elbow to the right elbow. Breathe in and lengthen. If you're in the full expression, maybe your left foot slightly in front of the right, just to counterbalance the pose. And then bring that left elbow towards the right, taking that rotation through the waist. Do this another 4 times. 3 times. Second time. And one more. And lift that chest. Bring the hands back, full plank. Bring it down onto the knees. Just give those wrists a little shake before we take that on the opposite side. So I will be facing the right hand side, but it's good to see the back view as we're working, rather than me turning on the mat to show you the other side facing forward. Make your way back to down dog. So hopefully you're getting quite a sweat on here. I know I certainly am. And my heating isn't even on. So heels back towards the mat, downward facing dog. Make sure you've stacked it up well. Eventually you start to learn where your downward facing dog feet should be. So your breath in raises up that left leg. Try and keep the hips neutral. Heel of the right pushing down to the mat. Bring the knee to the chest, keeping the hips are high. Try and encourage it towards that knee. Then raise that left leg again back up towards the ceiling. Bring that left knee to the left elbow, shoulders come over the heel of the hands and squeeze. Lift that left leg back up towards the ceiling, right heel to the mat. Bring that left knee now to the right elbow and squeeze. Then raise that left leg again back up towards the ceiling. And bring that knee to the chest. Gaze in between the hands and step that foot through. Turn the back heel down. Bring the shoulders over the hips and turn the shoulders to the right. Choices here to either bring that left forearm onto the top of the left thigh and reach that right arm up and over towards the front of the room. Or you can let that left arm dangle just in front of that left leg. And that will show that you're not using that knee to support the weight. If you're coming with me, reach that left arm out in front of you. Turn the waist. Keep that body at a 45-degree angle. Keep the left knee bent, the right leg straight. Push into both feet. Really using the waist to hold this body in this position. It will want to collapse to that left side, but try and keep both sides nice and long. The long limbs will create a little more strength work. Open that chest a little more to the right. Try not to let that right shoulder drop down. Hold it here just for another couple of breaths in whichever position you're in. One more breath. And then release those hands down. Step back to a plank. Hold it in plank just for a couple of breaths. And then make your way onto your left side. So either drop that back knee and turn the foot off. Lengthen through the waist. Lift up through the right hand and then bring that right hand behind the back of the head. Breathe in. Breathe out and dip that right elbow to the left. Breathe in and lift. Breathe out and dip that elbow. If it's straight legs, that right leg may be in front of the left, just to give you a little support from rocking too far forward. If you really want to challenge it, stack both feet one on top of the other, and that will really work that core strength a little more, because you'll have to switch it on so you don't roll over and fall forward as you bring that elbow down. Just another 2 more here. And 1 more. And lift. Bring both hands back to the mat. Plank position. Drop the knees. Widen the knees as far as you can to the edges of the mat. Bring the sit bones towards the heels, forehead to the floor. Bring the hands down by the sides of the body. Let the shoulders relax. Take a couple of breaths in child's pose. And just make your way onto your back, swinging the legs forward in front of you, bringing the bums into the center. Slowly release down towards that point that starts to challenge you. And then try and hold it at this point for 5 inhales and exhales. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Remember, release down whenever you're ready to release. That's 3. Switch on this center. 4. And 5. And release. So just to neutralize through that spine, release those muscles in the waist. Take a bend in both knees. And then just let the knees windscreen wipe from side to side, taking them over to one side, back through center, over to the other. Try to keep both shoulders plugged down into the mat as you move these legs from side to side. Bring those knees back into the center. Bring the knees into the chest. Just make some circles with the knees on the ceiling, just getting into that lower back. Make circles in the opposite direction. Squeeze those knees then in towards the body, nice and tight. Bring the elbows to the inside of the knees. Take a hold of the shins, the ankles, or the outsides of the feet. Squeeze a little more out of those hip flexors as you draw those thighs in towards the sides of the ribs, knees towards the armpits. Trying to stack the heel of the foot on top of the knees, the toes back to the shins. Maybe just have a little rock from side to side. That last little bit of core strength, because you'll need that core strength to stop the body from rocking too far over from one side to the other. And then bringing those feet back down to the mat. Just allow those feet to stay in the center, the knees to drop out to the sides. Maybe just have a little rock of those knees from side to side to really work into that lower back. And then bringing those knees to stillness, bring the hands on top of the hips. Take a nice long deep breath in. Long breath out. Release any muscles you're holding on to. Just allow everything just to relax to the floor. Maybe close the eyes. Just thanking that corset, that center of the body strength for working this class. It's a real challenging class. The slower we move, the harder it is on those muscles. So choice to stay here for a longer relaxation if you wish, or if you're finishing up here with me, have peace in your thoughts, your words, your hearts, from my heart to yours. Namaste.